Hey, it's Soul with the kind of video where I just talk, which is nothing new, which is apparently unbearable. I'm so sorry. But you can use the navigation thingamajigger to jump to the part that interests you. Now, as you might have heard, not only is Shadowlands getting a 9.25 patch, but it's also getting a 4th season. It's amazing how the very legitimate leaks that we've seen so far gave us like the entire 10.0 plot and the systems and the features and the characters, but information like this was being kept from them? Crazy. A glimpse of the 9.2.5 PTR build indicates that we're basically returning from the Shadowlands to help clean up the mess that we left behind, so there's going to be story. There's going to be things to collect, there will be cross-faction content, and it looks like there will be tier for people who play solo player content. Let's talk about why we're getting a season 4. Like the video, subscribe for more content, yada yada yada. In a recent preview, we got clued in on updates to raids and PvP and dungeon content that, well, it offers basically a season's worth of content. And you can learn more in the official announcement, which I'll link in the description, if I remember. Season 4 of Shadowlands indicates that Season 3 of Shadowlands, the one that we're in right now, will last anywhere between 6 to 8 months, give or take, which patch 9.2.5 is likely to launch somewhere in the middle of that, because PTR cycles typically last 3 or so months. 9.2's PTR cycle lasted that long. That also means if Season 4 will also last 6 to 8 months, WoW's next expansion won't be out until at least early 2023, with March or April at the latest. Now, for anyone who's looking to move on from Shadowlands as soon as possible, this is terrible news. And I understand if this is really frustrating for you, so, wave your pitchforks however you like. But consider the lesson learned with Shadowlands launch. After the WoW team was presumably pressured to launch Shadowlands from multiple stakeholders, including us, who felt so proud trying to point out all the legal ramifications and implications of not hitting street date. But thanks to the WoW team rushing Shadowlands out because it was them that did it, we got what we got. We got like a 1 month delay, followed by a pointless patch in 9.0.5, and a 9.1 that didn't deliver quite enough, followed by a 9.15 that finally felt like the WoW team finally hitting a stride, like 1 year later. The WoW team seems to be taking a different approach with 10.0, with what seems to be a much more forgiving schedule, putting themselves, the workers, first, with opportunities to deliver a product to their satisfaction. Maybe. So if the team is going to take its sweet ass time, might as well give us something to do while they're at it. This is something that people have asked for during every expansion lull without fail. Like, give us a mini season of content, Blizz. Give us a small raid or a dungeon, something to help us pass the time. And so with Season 4, we're getting kind of that. This isn't the first time that we have had a new season during a long lull. The 2 more recent expansions, like Mists of Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor, they had an additional PvP season added to those in the middle of what was a year-long wait for, their next respective expansion. In this era of World of Warcraft, though, it's not just PvP that's going to get seasons, but Mythic Plus and raids. Feel free to hang me for this, but I think this is a very smart move for the team to make, despite how we may immediately feel. This hopes to be not just a first, but perhaps a series of experiments to test how we as players could digest more with less, I guess. Very plainly, this is going to be remixed content propped up by who I'm guessing is a small team, while just about every other resource is going to be dedicated to 9.2.5 and 10.0. However, it really stood out to me, and probably many others, that the new season announcement was very skewed. Well, maybe it was skewed entirely towards people who take part in the big 3, raids, PvP, and dungeons, Mythic Plus. Obviously, these players matter. But what about people who only put in a few hours a week into the game? What about solo players and the so-called casuals, who historically, even during previous long seasons, didn't really get squat? To the WoW team's credit, Shadowlands does have a lot of solo, chill, casual content to offer, introduced throughout its lifetime. I'm still getting used to the Ember Court, and I found it super funny to know that, this was earlier today, like, Imeni has this big enough grudge to send a projection of herself all the way back to Azeroth to mess with people. So thanks to Covenant Sanctums, there's tons of content to collect and, well, not enough anima or grateful offerings to collect it all in a timely manner. But without knowing everything that 9.2.5 has to offer, and assuming that Season 4 won't add new content or rewards after 9.2.5 launches, what can the WoW team do so that everyone gets an opportunity to enjoy Season 4? Because Season 4 should not exclude people. That's what I'm getting at here. Now, we are getting the Mage Tower permanently next week, which is great. All that took was a truckload of feedback, but work-wise, the WoW team is just kind of leaving the switch on, so to speak. And that's what inspired the rest of this video. You can call the following suggestions. You can call it a thought exercise from a fellow armchair developer. I made a list of small additions or tweaks to present for Season 4 and the long-term health of World of Warcraft. So let's go. We'll start with Legacy Mode. I talked about this a few times, but let's start simple. While in Legacy Loot Mode, while you're in these dungeons or raids, the daily and the weekly lockout rules, they'll just no longer apply. Now, it could be a 3-day lockout instead of a week, or it could be a daily lockout, or even no lockout. A perk like this would make transmog farming far more accessible, and with each expansion, the number of dungeons and raids eligible for Legacy Loot Mode will grow. If I want to farm Invincible every day, as long as I'm, putting in the work and the effort, is that so big of a deal? Should I be able to just exit and immediately jump back in? Some would say yes, some would say no, but I think that's a worthwhile conversation to have among the team. There's a ton of transmog that's in the game files, but for one reason or another, it's not accessible in-game. So I say that the team should take a look at that and unleash these somehow, somewhere. Maybe this new transmog could appear on different reputation vendors throughout the whole game, or the Trial of Style. How about island expeditions, or Paragon caches, or even Torghast? The Lost Codex and many other content creators make pretty regular posts on Twitter basically bitching for more of these transmog models and color variations to be let loose to the players. Earning all of the Covenant transmog is understandably tough between the anima and the offerings farm and powering through each of the Covenant sanctums across multiple characters. I say some quality of life perks should be considered, like if I maxed out all the sanctum upgrades in a given covenant, I should be able to make an alt who is of a different armor type, join that covenant, and then automatically max out all the sanctum upgrades there too. Or maybe we can meet in the middle somewhere with a very generous discount and no more having to wait for research to be completed. Here's another way around it too. Right now there's very inconsistent behavior when buying cosmetic tokens to unlock transmog. Now sometimes I can buy the token even if it's not my armor type, like Cloth, and I can learn Cloth transmog from my paladin, and that's kind of cool. Now sometimes I can't. So preferably I'd like to learn this transmog on one character, especially when we consider that, in this case, I'm not exactly pushing mythic content for these appearances. I'm just doing some mini games and happen to be on characters who use different armor types. All in all, the whole thing on not being able to learn transmog unless the character that I use earns it from the right armor type or whatever, it's always been controversial, and in my opinion, unnecessary. Lifting that restriction will solve a ton of problems, including the ones that I just mentioned. And I say make life easier for everyone and just give in. It's not confirmed, but Sandworn gear in Zereth Mortis can be turned into tier pieces in the 9.2.5 PTR, giving solo players something to, celebrate. Now, since there's been no official confirmation of this yet, and since it's on the PTR, I'm just going to leave this on the list. Accessibility to tier gives another thing for solo players to farm for, and for those of us with the absolute worst luck, it gives a guaranteed path to tier. Full stop. If Season 4 is giving higher item level gear for season content, I'm going to expect the same for gear earned from Zereth Mortis, maybe even regular Shadowlands world quests and mission tables. How about spending Cosmic Flux to directly upgrade Cypher gear? It seems easy enough to throw that in. I'm towing the line here towards PvP stuff, but I'm going to throw this one in here. Let's have new incentives for world PvP focused on the faction leaders, since we're going to be kind of back on Azeroth again. And here's how it'll work. Faction leaders will have their health scaling updated, depending on the number of players attacking them. If the opposite faction manages to take out the faction leader, cool, they get a nice chunk of Conquest, earnable once per week. Defenders can pick up a weekly quest to defend their faction leader, also earnable once per week by killing attackers who are inside a large area around said leader. And finally, because it's easier to get a group together to attack a leader than it is to get a group to defend a leader because of yay sharding, when the faction leader is under attack, it's going to apply a powerful buff to nearby players. So even if these players aren't organized, or even if there aren't very many of them, they can still hold their own and contribute to city defense until more people arrive. And that buff will scale up or down depending on the number of players who show up. Now, of course, there are tons of holes with this suggestion, I get it. I'm just offering a jumping off point for more discussion. Another suggestion, this one's an oldie but a goodie. How about reactivating the events held back in 2020 during the initial pandemic shutdown? I'm talking about events like Korak's Revenge and having a chain of time walking weeks, going from start to finish. Or how about double anima events? Maybe buff the current rewards to give more reputation and more anima. How about something a little bit crazier, like being able to choose 2 rewards from the Great Vault on a given week? Those are the kinds of thoughts and suggestions that I'd have for the WoW team in a sort of season of winding down. There's no need for new and complicated systems, just like one step to fun. Something that's very easy to understand, sort of transactional actions that turn into rewards. But now I invite you to share your own ideas, your comments, your etceteras. But otherwise, I'm grateful and thank you for making it to the end. Thanks for joining me. Like the video, subscribe for more discussions and news and guides, and I'll see you later. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.